Hello. Today I thought that I'd have a look at another one of my Anyscale models to make another piece of scatter terrain. But I've been thinking I want to do something a bit radical with this piece. I really don't like painted windows on these type models. I really prefer the real thing, and I'm not sure whether this is going to be possible, but I'm thinking of actually cutting off the window screen part and try and actually cut that piece out to give it a more window openings. It'll either work or it won't, but I just feel that if it's going to be a shot up truck, there is no way that the window screens would be intact. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and take, using my saw, the top cab off and then cut that out and see if I can in any way put it back together using a bit of green stuff, just to make it a more realistic looking model. So I'll have a go at this and then I'll bring you back and show you what I've managed to achieve, if anything. So I've jumped ahead a little stage. I've cut the top of the vehicle off. I'm not going to say it was easy, it was a bit fiddly. But rather than having that solid cab, I've now hollowed it out and I've managed to put some broken glass in for the window screens and side doors. I just think that gives it a bit more of a realistic look, given that it's supposed to be a shot up vehicle. There's no way the glass would be intact, so a painted window just wasn't going to work. And then what I've done afterwards, I've made up any parts that I lost in cutting it out. I used a bit of green stuff to replace that and smoothed it in. And then once that was dry, I've just given it this Army Painter desert yellow primer to get it ready for the next stage. And now I'm going to start to do some light dry brushing with Skeleton Bone by Army Painter as well, just to bring that really bright yellow colour down. Right, now that I've given it its dry brush, that's took that desert yellow right down. I'll be applying the camo effect to this truck as well. So what I'm going to do now is I've just basically found this bit of scrap board. It's sign writer's board like I've used before, but it's obviously like to be honest, I don't know how it escaped being dumped, but I think I could probably utilise that little bit of it there for its base, and then I can, draw what's left of what it was carrying spilling out onto the ground. So I'm going to cut this to shape, and then we'll come back. So I've cut out the base from the bit of scrap, and then as you can see what I've done here, that's going to be the edge of a road. So I've used a bit of green stuff and I've really blended it onto the ground, and then I've used a roller to create the cobblestone effect. And the idea being that the truck is going to have two of its wheels on the road, and then the others coming off into the mud area, which I'm going to have there, then a slightly patchy area, and then grass this side. But obviously I've got to wait for that to dry. I had a little bit left over, so I've rolled out some really thin torn, in case I want to use it as a sheet that was over the tarpaulin over the back of the truck that's now all ripped up. So I've just stretched that out and left it on a roller to dry, and then I'll have a look at that It may be that I'll use it, it may be I won't, but if I don't, I'll use it on another project. So, but that's my thinking behind that. So I'm just laying that loosely on there until it dries and goes hard, and then I'll see whether I can use it or not. So in the meanwhile, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start the camouflage on the main body of the truck and on the outer side of the wooden back part. Obviously not on the inside because that wouldn't have been camouflaged. And I'm going to use a similar style that you use on the tanks. I'm going to use a little bit of sponge, and I'm going to use Army Painter Army Green, and I'm also going to use Fur Brown to do the camouflage, and I'm going to try and keep it so it's equally divided, so you know there's a third of it will be brown, a third of it is going to be the green, and a third of it still the yellow showing through. But I'll do that now, and then I'll bring you back. Right, so what I've done is I've block coloured out the camo, and I've used a Necromancer Cloak by Army Painter on the engine block and the radiator grille and the tyres, and then some of the parts underneath and the spare tyre. And what I'll be doing is I'll silver some of these up with some gunmetal, and obviously I'll take the colours right back down again then with some washes. But for now I'm just going to let that dry, because obviously I'm still waiting for the green stuff to dry. And before I go on to do any washes on it, I'm going to apply the transfers, because we want them to, you know, to blend in the background of it. And then I can also spot the same colours that are underneath the transfers, do a very light spotting on top to show some wear on the actual emblems as well, like we do on tanks. And then it'll be applying the mud and the dust and stuff like that to take all these block colours right back down. Right, what I'm going to do now then is apply these transfers before I do much more about mounting the vehicle. It's worth taking a bit of time just to get it where you want it. That's like the first one. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for one on either door, and possibly a number plate on the front, and one of the emblems on the back possibly, and then I'll be able to get to the next stage. I'll bring them over onto the model with a wet brush, and then I use one of these green stuff carving sticks with the rubberized ends for just pushing it gently into place, and I've found that really works well. And years gone by I used to have a lot of problems and irritations with these, but since I've done it this way they've gone on really easily. And that's that one. That's that one. Let's manage to get it on. That was a bit tricky. Whether you can see it actually. just about make it out on the rear mud flap inside. Just leave me with the one to put on the back, and that's that one in place. Right, the transfers have now set in place, and I've given them a slight coat of matte varnish, and as you can see I've also started touching up other bits of the truck, just to make it easier once I've mounted it to finish off the paintwork. And the green stuff road has now dried on the edge here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do a basic brown with some PVA and grit and some PVA mixed in, and coat this and let that dry, and then I can paint this up before mounting the truck. So what I've got in here is some model colour flat earth. And I'm going to add a little bit of PVA as well. So about 60-40 in favour of the paint, because I want this to be fairly strong. Right. I'm just going to paint this up to the road. I know it looks a bit of a blocky colour at the minute, but it'll just create the ground texture really, and then we can touch it up later. Trying to put it on reasonably thick as well. And I picked up a model shop the other day. He's selling off bits of old Jarvis scatter, and this is an extra fine ballast chippings. It was 50p, so I thought it'll be ideal for mixing into things like this to get a bit of ground texture. So now I'm just going to sprinkle that lightly over this. Not a lot coming off anyway, but so it ends up like that basically, because I will be going over the top of this again. And as I say, I intend to have this pot like a muddy effect, and then, you know, patchy before going into a bit of grass on the end, and then obviously painting up the cobble road with the grey. So I've just got to let that dry now, and then I'll bring you back. Right, now that this is dry, I'm going to give the road a coat of Filthy Cape by Army Painters, just as an initial coat. Right. This will be quite light, but I'm going to give it a wash as well, so I'm not going to put it on too thick because I don't want to obscure all the cobble pattern that I've rolled into it. So that's the initial coat on that road. Still a little bit of green showing there, so I might let this dry and then just give it the lightest of light coats again before I add the wash to it. And now I can add a little bit of this Vallejo splashed mud. There we go. So that's what it's looking like at the minute. While I'm waiting for the base to dry, I thought I could make a start on using some of this Rubicon Model Stowage Set 1. I've already used some of it, but I've still got some decent packing crates in here and a couple of oil drums. And so I could probably make some of this up and start getting it painted. And we'll use that for what the truck had been carrying. So I'm going to cut these up, stick them together, wait for them to dry, and then I'll bring you back when I'm painting them. Right, I'm trying a bit of experiment here. So what I've done is I've bent some wires to form the canopy, even though it's been destroyed. And if you remember the green stuff that I rolled out, I've painted that, and I'm going to try and drape the ripped part over it and fix it in place with super glue. Obviously I'll have to paint it again if it does work, but I just want to get it in place first. So this is going to be a bit of an experiment. I mean, normally I'd use something like cloth, but I'd got this and I fanned it out into like a sheet material, and I thought it'd hold its creases better. So I'm just going to try it and see what happens. So I'll attach this and then I'll bring you back. I'm still not totally convinced this is going to work, but I'm going to try it anyway. So that's what it's looking like now that I've draped and glued it into place. Obviously I'll be brushing that up a bit as well to take away the look of that. But the main thing was to get it in place and torn. Be fixing it on there once I've given this the wash. And then as you can see over, I don't know whether you can see it there. just in the background here is all the crates and barrels that I'm going to have spilling out of it onto the floor. I'm still waiting for some of them to dry, but that shouldn't take very long now. And I'll bring you back when I'm getting it in place. Right, I'll give that a light brushing of skeleton bone to just bring that down to more of a canvas look. And then I've glued the vehicle in place now, so I can start building up the clutter and debris that's fallen out of the truck onto the floor. So I should be taking, I'll just show you a few of these. All these crates and barrels that I've painted, and I'm going to have them spilling out of the truck. So it'll be a bit fiddly to film it while I'm doing it, and a bit boring to watch. So what I'll do is I'll put it in place, and then I'll let you have a closer look. Right, so I've based it and I've put on all of the debris falling out the truck, and now I'm going to put a little bit of static grass along this edge here, and I'm using some dead grass and autumn grass, and it's fairly short because I'm going to use tufts as well. Tip that any loose off. You can just see now I've got some along that edge. I will do another run. I'm going to let that dry first and do a little bit more, and then I'm going to build it up with some tufts as well. Right, I'll bring you back in a minute. So what I've been doing now that the grass is dried is I've been weathering this now to make it looked a little bit too fresh. So obviously where it's been shot at, there's been a bit of an engine fire on there, and it's still a little bit wet at the minute. I've done the odd oil leak coming out of it, but when it's thoroughly dry I'll probably give it a dust over as well, just to make it look like it's sat there for quite a while, and then I can start to add some of the final grass tufts and things just to finish it off. But we're getting very close now on this. Right, so I'm going to let that dry for a bit, and then we'll come back and we'll add some of the finishing touches. Right, it's time just to add a few tufts to this one from my ever decreasing pile of leftover tufts. I'm not going to do too many. I dab glue on these even though they've got a little bit of self-adhesive, because I want to make sure that they're going to stay in place. I say I won't add too many. That's them empty. Add one of these lighter brown ones. slightly lighter green one. I'll put that one just there. I think that's it. It's too small a piece really to add much more than that. So I'm going to call that complete. And it's still drying, you know, from the paintwork as well. So, but what I'll do is when it is dry, I'll seal this just to make sure, you know, with some watered down PVA, make sure it stays firm. And when it's thoroughly dry, I'll give the actual vehicle itself a mist with matte varnish just to make sure that, you know, none of the colouring comes off when I'm handling it. But what I'll do is I'll tie up the video and I'll put some stills on that'll probably give you a better view than I'm showing you on the live camera. Right. Yep, so that's another piece of scatter terrain done. The good thing about these is it really lets your imagination fly. But you've got to rein it in a little bit because you can get carried away. Okay, right, I'll leave you with some photographs. And here's the finished truck. And it's weathered up now, just needs varnishing and sealing. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's given you some ideas of something that you could do for your terrain. And if you have enjoyed it, please consider giving me a thumbs up or subscribing for when my next video comes out. Bye.